Hello again, temporal historians. Brace yourselves. I'm your core cipher, dragging you into the searing chaos of yet another realm. From 1754 to 1800, North America is a crucible of sweat, blood, and defiance, where colonial rebels, indigenous warriors, and enslaved Africans clash with empires to birth a nation, broken, bold, and burning with contradiction. This ain't just history. It's a gut-wrenching saga, frostbitten feet, tar-scorched screams, and dreams forged in gunfire. Your mission? Smell the gunpowder, feel the weight of the chains, and grapple with the choices that carved America's soul. Haunt you. Grab your courage and dive into the forge where a nation was hammered into being. It's 1754 and the colonies are a tinderbox. A young man's mistake in a frozen forest sparks a global war, and Britain's greed fans the flames. Smell the pine and blood? This is where rebellion begins. Picture George Washington, 22, all swagger and no wisdom, trudging through Pennsylvania's icy wilderness in 1754. His breath clouds in the frosty air, his boots crunch on the snow. At Jumonville Glen, he ambushes a French patrol. His muskets crack, echoing as diplomat Joseph Colin de Jumonville crumples, blood streaming on the ice. A Delaware scout at Washington's side mutters, "This will bring hell." It does. The French and Indian War erupts, a 7-year inferno that scorches North America. Britain, allied with the Iroquois, battles France and their Huron partners. By 1763, the Treaty of Paris gives Britain, Canada, and Florida, but the war's cost, £130 million in debt, chokes the empire. Colonists hardened by battle taste their own strength. A Boston cobbler reeking of leather and ale scrawls in 1763, "We spilt our blood for the crown, and now they tax our bread." Britain's proclamation of 1763, barring settlement west of the Appalachians to pacify indigenous nations, enrages settlers. A Virginia trapper, his hands calloused from skinning deer, spat, "No London lord will steal my frontier." Britain's desperate for coin, so they tax the colonies raw. The 1765 Stamp Act hits every paper, wills, tavern bills, even love letters. In Boston, Sam Adams, eyes blazing over a mug of sour ale, rallies the Sons of Liberty. They drag a tax collector through cobblestone streets, hot tar burning his skin, his screams mingling with the stench of pine resin and a mob sweat. A 1765 pamphlet howls, "Taxation without representation is shameless." In 1773, the Tea Act breaks the dam. In Charleston, South Carolina, Elizabeth Murray, a shopkeeper with ink-stained fingers, hides tea crates in her damp cellar, whispering, "This tea's all I got left." But in Boston, patriots dressed as Mohawk Indians storm ships, hurling 342 tea chests into the harbor. The air reeks of salt and steeped leaves as the water turns black. Britain's coercive acts slam Boston's ports shut, starving dockworkers. The First Continental Congress gathers, their quills scratched, a unifying cry of defiance. Your task is to write a 700 to 800 word DBQ essay answering how did the French and Indian War and British policies between 1754 and 1775 ignite colonial resistance and unity. First step, analyze 6 primary sources and 2 secondary sources. Probe for context, perspective, and reliability. Step 2, build a thesis with 3 evidence-based claims using 5 sources. Integrate data and refute a counterargument. Step 3, create a sensory-rich digital timeline, something with sound, smell, visual. Show how these events fueled the rebellion of 1776. By 1775, quills give way to muskets. The colonies wage war against an empire, and the fight for independence smells of gunpowder, sweat, and betrayal. April 19th, 1775, Lexington Green. 70 Minutemen, their breath steaming in dawn chill, face 700 redcoats. A shot cracks. Nobody knows whose, and 8 colonists collapse. Blood soaking the grass, the air thick with sulfur and fear. At Conquer's Bridge, militiamen fire from behind stone walls, redcoats dropping with groans that haunt the riverbank. A farmer soldier scratched in his diary, "We painted the ground red." June 1775, Bunker Hill. 2,200 British charged colonial trenches, their boots stinking in mud. Peter Salo, a free black Minuteman, his hands steady despite the musket's kick, shoots Major John Pitcairn, whose blood stains his crimson coat. The British take the hill, but 1,000 redcoats lay dead or screaming, the air heavy with smoke and charred flesh. Colonists whisper, "We can break them." July 4, 1776, Philadelphia. Thomas Jefferson, sweat beading on his brow, pens the Declaration of Independence, claiming all men are created equal. But his quill moves in a room where Sally Hemings, 14 and enslaved, mends his coat, her silence louder than his words. Jefferson owns her siblings, and his own children. 600 souls bound to his will. The war is a crucible of suffering. In 1777, Saratoga's muddy fields see 9,000 patriots trap 5,000 British. A victory that lures France's aid. But Valley Forge, in the winter of 1777 to 78, is a frozen hell. Joseph Plum Martin, 17, shivers in a tent. His toes black with frostbite, eating fire cakes of flour and water. He scrawled, "My stomach gnawed itself." In South Carolina, the 1780 Battle of Camden leaves 900 patriots dead in the red clay. But Francis Marion, the Swamp Fox, strikes from the low country swamps. His horse's hoofs splash in moonlit muck. A British captain snarls, "This ghost hunts us." By 1781, Yorktown siege, 17,000 French and American troops, cannons booming, forced Cornwallis to surrender. The 1783 Treaty of Paris ends the war, but 25,000 Americans, 1% of the population, are gone, their graves reeking of loss. Indigenous nations in Africa shape the war's bloody path. The Iroquois Confederacy splits. Mohawk leader Joseph Brant, his war paint streaked with sweat, burns patriot villages for the British, the air thick with ash and screams. The Oneida, allied with the Patriots, slip through the forest, whispering redcoat plans. Enslaved Africans grasp at freedom's edge. Lord Dunmore's 1775 proclamation promises liberty for slaves joining the British. Boston King, 20, flees a Carolina plantation, dodging dogs and whips, only to find the British abandon him in 1783. His dreams souring like spoiled cornmeal. Black patriots like Salem fire muskets, but freedom's still a lie. Your task, in groups of 3 or 4, craft a century-rich case study on one group's role in the revolution. Analyze 5 primary sources and 3 secondary sources. Probe sensory details and perspective. Step 2, create a 10-minute multimedia presentation answering, how did your group's actions shape the revolution and what drove their fight? Use data and vivid evidence to support. Step 3, lead a Socratic seminar with 3 sensory-based questions, citing sources and challenging peers. The war is won, but the nation's a rickety shack in a storm. Leaders sweat to build a government that won't crumble under its own contradictions. The 1781 Articles of Confederation are a weak glue for 13 states. No taxes, no army, no trade control. By 1786, Shays' Rebellion erupts in Massachusetts. Daniel Shay, a war veteran, with calloused hands and empty pockets, leads 4,000 farmers to storm courthouses. their pitchforks gleaming in the winter sun. Shea bellows, "We fought for liberty, not debt." The rebellion's crushed, but the stench of desperation lingers. In 1787, a Boston printer warned, "This weak frame will bury us." Summer 1787, Philadelphia. 55 delegates, shirts soaked in humid heat, locked doors to forge the Constitution. James Madison, a bookish Virginian, pushes a strong government, but small states balk. The Great Compromise births a two-house Congress, saving the deal amid cigarette smoke and ink. Slavery is the fort's darkest ember. South Carolina's Charles Pinckney, 29, his boots polished by enslaved hands, demands slavery's protection. Three-fifths compromise counts enslaved people as three-fifths for representation, bloating Southern power. Onesimus, an enslaved man who taught Boston smallpox inoculation decades earlier, is a ghost in the hall. His genius ignored, his people silenced. The Constitution delays slave trade bans until 1808, sickening abolitionists like Benjamin Rush, who's hurled, "We've chained liberty itself." Ratifying the Constitution is a street fight. Federalists like Alexander Hamilton's quill flying in the Federalist Papers preach order. Anti-Federalists like Mercy Otis Warren, her ink-stained hands shaking, warn of tyranny. In South Carolina, John Rutledge, reeking of plantation tobacco, backs the Constitution but demands a Bill of Rights. By 1791, 10 amendments shielded speech, faith, and arms, but leave the enslaved and indigenous in chains and shadows. Your task: debate and write a 600-word synthesis essay. Did the Constitution ignite or betray the Revolution's ideals of liberty and equality? Step 1. Analyze 5 primary sources and 3 secondary sources. Probe sensory details and biases. Step 2. In teams, deliver a 7-minute debate, arguing a thesis, 4 sensory-rich claims, and a rebuttal. Step 3. Write a synthesis essay linking the Constitution to the conflicts of the era. The United States stands, but it's a wobbly spark in a windstorm. Leaders clash, crises flare, and air reeks of division and defiance. In 1789, George Washington, his boots muddy from Mount Vernon's fields, takes the oath. He rides through Charleston's dusty streets, the crowd's cheer mixing with tang of low country salt air. But trouble brews. In 1794, a whiskey rebellion seized Pennsylvania farmers, reeking of corn liquor, attacking taxmen over a whiskey levy. Washington sends 13,000 militia, their boots thundering, to crush it. A farmer's wife, Sarah Logan, hides her husband in a hayloft, hissing, "Taxes choke our blood." The French Revolution splits America. Hamilton, his coach starch, demands neutrality. Jefferson, his hands ink-stained, cheers France's rebels. The 1793 Neutrality Proclamation keeps America out of the war, but the air crackles with dissent. John Adams, sworn into office in 1796, faces a nation split like dry kindling. Federalists like Hamilton crave central power. Democratic Republicans like Jefferson demand states' rights. In 1798, the Alien Sedition Act's jail critics, including South Carolina's Thomas Cooper, who so reeks of mildew as he writes, "This is tyranny in patriot skin." Jefferson and Madison's Virginia and Kentucky resolutions claim states can nullify federal law, their ink carrying the whiff of rebellion. The quasi-war with France fills the air with cannon smoke. Sailor James Durand, dodging French cannonballs, recalled, "Our ship stank of blood and salt." Peace comes, but partisan hatred festers like an open wound. Liberty mocks the enslaved and indigenous. South Carolina's rice plantations, steamed with swamp mud, enslaved 100,000 by 1800. In Virginia, Gabriel, an enslaved blacksmith, his hands scarred from the forge, plans an 1800 rebellion, inspired by Hades' fire. Betrayed, he's hanged with 26 others, his hammer clenched in defiance, the gallows creaking in the humid air. In the southeast, Cherokee leader dragging canoe, his war paint smeared with sweat, burned settlers' cabins in 1794. Cherokee woman wept, her lands melt like spring snow. Your task, as an 1800 advisor to Adams, write a 700-word policy brief addressing one crisis. Step 1. Analyze an 1800 political map, 4 primary sources and 3 secondary sources. Probe them for sensory details and stakes. Step 2. Write a brief strategy using evidence and a sensory-rich assessment for your classmates. Step 3. In a class cabinet meeting simulation, present your strategies. Negotiate as rival factions amid imagined smells, and vote on the best plan. As we douse the flames of the realm, a nation stands, scarred, divided, but defiant. Washington's blood-soaked blunder, Salem's gunpowder-stained shot, Hemming's silent rebuke, Shays' desperate charge, Pinckney's tobacco-tainted demands, and Gabriel's iron hammer forged America's jagged soul. The Revolution freed some, but chained millions and burned indigenous land to ash. The Constitution balanced ideals with betrayal, and the early republic staggered under its own weight. You've smelled the tar, tasted the frostbite, and felt the gallows creak. Charleston's tea-stained harbor, Marion's swamp-soaked raids, and Gabriel's forge tied South Carolina to this crucible. These stories, screaming taxmen, starving soldiers, defiant rebels, are your weapon. The forge's embers glow, shaping our world. Gear up for the next round, where this raw nation battles its demons.